confusion and despair. We have faith, hope, and love. That's why we'll win in the end. M. Bolster does his thing. Thank you. John Rampton says, Vox, hypothetically, if I create and record a song to promote a children's Christmas book and it might stand alone as a hit single Christmas song, yeah, it's not going to be a hit single because, again, not authorized. What's the best path in this day and age to use it? Almost certainly put it on YouTube. You know, if it's a good enough song, you don't need a video or anything. You can just put it up with a picture, or maybe a series of pictures, pages from the book and so forth. You know, YouTube is still where you will get the potential views. That's why bands put their videos up. They know perfectly well that the music's going to be downloaded from there. Remember, bands don't make money from selling music anymore. The music is just an advertisement for their live shows. That's why live is so important these days. So, okay, we covered that. That's good. And we're all caught up. Let's see here. What are these bullhead things? Those are the icons that the channel members get. Just finished reading my backers Alt Hero Volume 1. Any update on which issue will be out next of Alt Hero, Avalon, or Q? We're actually pretty much done with Avalon 5 and 6, with Alt Hero Q number 2, and those will be out before Alt Hero 7. Alt Hero 7 is, I think we're at about page 17 or so, in terms of getting it all drawn and colored. Seth Smith says, Joe Rogan constantly pushes for multiracialism and anti-Western civilization at every chance he gets. Of course he does. That's what he's paid to do. The authorized are authorized specifically in order to undermine Western civilization. They hate Western civilization, they hate Christianity, and they hate America. Literally. No, somebody doesn't know. Somebody said, does in a 4GW world you still need 3GW defense though, right? That's not how it works. I recommend that you read or listen to the 4 Generations of Modern War. Mr. Lind will explain them to you. Welcome Zodiacal Lights Bear. That's a bit of a mouthful. And Paul C. says, I'm looking to purchase a copy of Tragedy and Hope. I see 3 prints available. First edition unabridged, New Millennium unabridged. Should I stay away from the unabridged editions? No, unabridged means it's complete. I don't see any problem with the unabridged versions. Yeah. Batman Bear, remember, sarcasm and being fun don't come across in writing, so it's usually best to avoid that in the chat. Joe Rogan told Roseanne that there are online cults. I think Owen Vox and Stefan is who he's talking about. Well, I think, considering that our followings are much, much smaller than PewDiePie or lots of other people on YouTube or doing video and podcasts, I find it difficult to believe that's what he's aiming at. I mean, yeah, we may have 329 people watching. We may have, 5 to 10,000 who will eventually watch this, but it seems a little bit strange that they would uh, focus on that as opposed to, a million people watching PewDiePie. Um, but remember, they project. They always project. We're not a cult. The Bears are not a cult. It's totally ridiculous. But, Joe Rogan would like to have a cult. And so, um, you know, whenever an SJW attacks you, you know where they're coming from. You know what their weaknesses are. He's the one from what I understand, he's the one who is running around advocating the use of mind-altering substances. That's a lot more akin to drinking the Kool-Aid than me telling you, yeah, you know what, you should really read Aristotle and Arian and the Bible. You know, how can you combat the atheist argument that Christians are overrepresented as convicts? Easily. They're wrong. They're completely wrong. In fact, atheists are actually overrepresented if you define atheist as someone who does not believe that God exists, as opposed to someone who calls himself an atheist. I addressed this back in 2008 in The Irrational Atheist. But also, it's somewhat difficult to prove in any event because the United States does not keep track of religion. I had to resort to the prison population of England and Wales. So, but and furthermore, getting back to the concept of the Joe Rogan cult, I think we can all agree: no toe in Idaho, no toe in Ohio. Um, let's see, before or after being sentenced. um, what was the Sea War book you had? Mahan. The book by Mahan. Do you think the Joker movie will have much of a societal impact? No, of course not. It's not even a particularly good movie. And this whole thing about people are walking out because it's so disturbing. You have to have a pretty fragile mental health to find yourself shaken by a portrayal of somebody going crazy. Yeah. Vote no to Proposition Joe. Yeah, I agree with Zodiacal Lightspear, the new channel member. Already showing his worth. He said the people walking out bit is just more marketing. Exactly. They're just trying to impress people with how edgy it is. Daniel Pereira says no spoil. I can't give you any spoilers. I know nothing about the movie. I haven't watched the movie. I've read precisely one piece about it that didn't talk about the plot at all. Um, you know, yeah, nobody actually wants to talk about the real statistics because, especially in England and Wales, uh, a disturbingly high percentage of the prisoners of the imprisoned are Muslim. Thoughts on Alan Moore? uh, talented, original thinker, uh, pagan occultist, um, desperately needs an editor for his fiction. I'm one of the very few people who has actually read Jerusalem, and it was a good book. It was an interesting book, but it probably it would have been a lot better if it had been only 2/3 as long. And you know, um, he's got that same. I don't know what the best way to call it. That pseudo literary focus on degeneracy and uh, sexual vulgarity that has absolutely permeated modern literature. You know, there's just it's amazing to me how much dog shit is written about. You know, it's like they're trying to. Uh, there seems to be nothing other than various forms of sex that the would-be literati write about more than candy wrappers and dog shit. It's almost like a requirement if you want to be considered literary. You know, ever since I mean, it's kind of funny because you know I am now the best novelist that graduated from Bucknell University, and I enjoy saying that because um, that's supposed to be Philip Roth, but Philip Roth really isn't a very good writer. Um, I would be happy to put my best novels up against his best novels and let anyone, you know, judge for themselves. Um, because so much of what, so much of what they're doing is just delving into their own perversions. There's nothing insightful about that. Zach McCracken says, funny, it looks like Joe the Toe's ego is shaken by Owen. His whole clique of YouTube comedians are banned from mentioning his name. Of course he is. Because you know, Joe Rogan has enough talent to recognize how much better Owen is. You know, it's the same reason that Salieri was portrayed as being jealous of uh, was as being jealous of Mozart. You know, when you know they don't want to mention people. There's a reason why I'm sometimes referred to as Voxamort, because there are so many different little communities, whether it's in the science fiction world or in the comics world or whatever, that they just absolutely refuse to even mention my name for fear that they will cause somebody to look at what I'm doing and then find it persuasive. John Yossarian wants to know if I need any help with lifting that Bible back on the shelf. Yeah. Um, yeah, because the thing is that probably of every 4 Joe Rogan fans who visit Owen, at least 2 of them will continue to watch Owen, and at least one of them will turn against Joe. John Z says, thanks for what you do, Vox. Have you ever touched on the art of war in the past? I assume you're talking about Sun Tzu's and not Machiavelli's or any of the others. Or, I mean, I've actually, I don't think I've actually talked much about Machiavelli's art of war. Perhaps we can do a book study on Sun Tzu's art of war. Mammoth Mike Milker says, most comedians are actually politically correct shills too scared of losing their careers to speak the truth. Well, of course they are. Why wouldn't they be? You know, Owen was meant to serve as an example, and that's why the success of this tour was so hard for them to witness and so upsetting to them, is because Owen is proving that he doesn't need their approval, that he doesn't need their authorization. But most of them don't have the talent, don't have the genuine strength of followers. I have a lot of respect for the Bears because there are so many groups of seeming supporters that, at best their support is paper thin. We've seen this time and time again. You see these authors who are supposedly massively popular. Their books sell hundreds of thousands on Amazon through Kindle Unlimited. And you know what? You put a book out in print, doesn't sell. You do a crowdfunding campaign, nobody shows. And what you realize is that they're actually just creatures of the Amazon algorithm. Amazon is pushing some of its users to that particular author. But they'd never be able to, even come out with a successful hardcover, let alone, make a movie or anything. And that kind of brings us back to the point about the revolution will be atomized. We need to we need to not be these separate little cells. The cells have to exist on their own, but then in order to achieve anything, they need to come together and work together in a productive manner in order to deal with the inevitable heat and the inevitable attacks that come from the authorized. We will know that the next stage has been reached when you see the New York Times Magazine or the Atlantic doing some sort of piece on Owen. Or, for example, there will probably be, I would say, sometime in 2020 or 2021, there will probably be some sort of major hit piece on me, talking about, basically portraying me as some sort of spider in a web, don't be fooled by it. Don't be, understand that it will happen. And so, Rod Breton says, I've heard of Instagram influencers with millions of followers who can't manage to sell 10 t-shirts. That's because what we mean by authorized is that they are basically being given fame, money, etc., etc. And a lot of it is not legitimate. It's not real. We've seen that. I'll give you an example. If you're a big politician who gets nominated for president, you will have a New York Times best-selling book. It will sell millions, maybe even tens of millions of copies. Do you think anyone actually buys those books and reads them? I have talked to probably 50 or 60 people who voted for Hillary Clinton. No one ever bought or read any of the books written by Hillary Clinton. Greta Thunberg thing, she doesn't have any actual following. She's just a creature, propped up. you know, and when there are people who are actually genuinely popular, I think that Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson are genuinely popular to a certain extent, but they are also creatures. You know, they, um, you know, they make people offers. Do you want this? Um, and then it's just it's just like the with the rock stars. Why do you think they're all on cocaine? I mean, how on earth does the average rocker who has no money whatsoever, no job, and if he's a musician or a rocker, he spends all of his money on his guitars or whatever, right? How does somebody like that get hooked on cocaine? It's offered to them. The record companies use it as a way to keep them manageable. You know, they use fame and money the same way, and the system with the social media system. Yeah, Fozzie Bear said even Hillary hasn't read the books Ghost written her name. She probably hasn't. I'm not kidding. She probably hasn't. Comey's book that was on the New York Times bestseller, absolutely. Yeah, the wanna be a member, wanna be a member. Um, yeah, they did hit pieces on Mel Gibson's father before they eventually came after Mel. Yeah, I mean, be kind of tough for them to do hit pieces on my father. He's been in prison the last 11 years. Um, but it's 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 uh, it's probably a tactic. You know, um, but it doesn't matter. Don't fear them. Don't fear those who can only kill your career. Fear him who judges the soul. Don't fear those who can only threaten your life. Fear him who judges the soul. And if it's said that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So fear God. But here's the thing. If you have a sufficient and a wise fear of God, there's not much room to fear anybody else. Alex Heterodoxy Bear Kloster says, who runs the technology of aspects of unauthorized TV? I'm a software security engineer and I would love to lend my services. We'd probably actually be more interested in having you help out on Social Galactic 2.0. So if you want to shoot me an email, I'll forward your information to the correct individual. Garen Bear said, but the Clintons can suicide you. Well, think about it, though. Think about it. Who do they suicide? It's not people like us. They don't have any right to touch the people who belong to God. They crush their own, especially their own who go off the reservation. But at the end of the day, again, every Christian has to be prepared, for the possibility of martyrdom. It might not be something that you want. It might not be something, I certainly fully intend to, I want to finish all 5 books of Arts of Dark and Light before I die. That's my goal. That's what I want to do. There are other goals too, obviously, more family related goals and that sort of thing. But, um, you know, I'm not worried about opposing Mark Zuckerberg and that sort of thing. You know, and at the end of the day, you know, who are you going to be? You know, are you going to be a coward, or are you going to stand up for the truth? Uh, I'm not interested in people asking me questions about myself. Um, you know, when you look at the the way that people are treated, look at Jordan Peterson, look at Ben Shapiro, look at Mark Zuckerberg. Are these people who strike you as having good, high quality lives? You know, look at Hillary Clinton. You know, none of them, I very much doubt that any of them have lives that virtually any of us would trade our own lives for. You know, they live, I mean, once you sell your soul, you've got nothing left. All you've got is your appetites. All you've got is trying to derive as much pleasure, as much momentary pleasure as you can. And the thing is, pleasure is, it's like a drug. You know, what gave you pleasure initially, you need more of. You need more and more of. And that's when you end up in these incredible, incredibly evil practices and desires. You know, Quilting Bear says, I'm suffering from multiple sclerosis in an active episode, and I wouldn't trade with them. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a reformed hedonist myself. I would say I'm a partially reformed hedonist myself. But I know that, you know, going down that route, however pleasurable it is just going to turn into a tar pit, or worse, quicksand. Um, Andrew Erickson has a good point. Look at Nero and all those with limitless power. They all go off the rails. They really do. You know, Tiberius, Nero, you know, Stalin, Castro, all these people go crazy. Why? Because once you sever yourself from the logos, from the living word, then, you know, you essentially reduce yourself to a furiously masturbating chimpanzee. You know. Yeah, and it was said a long time ago. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? It doesn't. So don't do it. Focus on the truth. Focus on life. You know, there's no there's no joy that can compete with those magical moments with your children. There's no joy that can compete with those moments of sublime understanding that you have with your wife from time to time. You know, and the thing is it's not the same as hedonistic pleasure. You know, there are, you know, if I think about it, if I had, if there were like three moments in time that I could go back to, some of the most powerful and most beautiful moments are small ones. Small ones with my children or with my wife, and um, you know, and it's not the sort of thing that like makes you crave it again and again and again. You know, I mean, I still remember very, very clearly the first time one of my kids went on a long walk with me. And what I mean is that they were still walking, having to hold on to my hands, and I couldn't believe how far we got. And I can still remember the little stone staircase that we reached, and every single time I happened to be in that neighborhood and I see that little stone staircase, it just just the after effects, the echoes of that joy from years ago fills me. You know, what DMT or check or threesome or porn video could ever compete with that? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So that's why I think that it's so easy not to take the bait. It's so easy not to sell out. To the point that, why would you sell that? Because those moments become part of your soul. That's the difference between hedonistic pleasure and joy. Joy becomes part of your soul. Pleasure becomes the corruption of your body. They're two very different things. So, anyhow, I've no idea how long we've been on because the stream keeps going. Oh, we've actually gone on longer than we normally do. Anyhow, so if you're still interested in the Castalia Deluxe, which is seriously interested, shoot me an email, voxday@gmail.com. $50 a month. You get a new leather-bound book every other month. We're hoping to get that going very soon. We're just working on a few things behind the scenes here before we start it. That's about it, other than have a great time if you're going to the Ohio show tomorrow night. Remember, vote no on Proposition Joe, and we will look forward to seeing you soon. This is the Darkstream. I'm Vox Day.